The human mind is a vast, expansive place. We know what sadness feels like. We recognize anxiety when our palms get sweaty before a presentation. We talk about depression and we discuss stress. These are the recognizable landmarks of mental health that we see discussed in schools, on social media, and perhaps even at the dinner table. But what happens when you experience something that doesn't fit on the map? While conditions like anxiety and depression affect millions, there exists a darker, less traversed corner of psychology containing rare disorders that are often misunderstood. Suffering from these conditions can be incredibly isolating. You might feel like you are the only person in the world experiencing your reality. Understanding the signs is the first step toward finding clarity. Here are 7 signs you might be struggling with a rare mental illness. 1. Distorted perception of size and distance. Have you ever been lying in bed at night staring at the wall when suddenly the room seems to stretch out endlessly? Or perhaps you look at your own hand and it appears gigantic, swelling up like a balloon while your feet look miles away? This isn't just a dream or a trick of the light. This is a primary sign of Alice in Wonderland syndrome, also known as Todd's syndrome. Named after the famous Lewis Carroll novel, this neurological condition causes temporary episodes of distorted perception. People with this condition often experience micropsia, objects appearing smaller than they are, or macropsia, objects appearing larger. It can feel as though the ground is spongy, or that walls are closing in on you. According to a 2016 review published in the Journal of Pediatric Neurosciences, Todd's syndrome is often associated with migraines, infections like Epstein-Barr, or head trauma. While it is more commonly reported in children, it can persist into adulthood. The sensation can be terrifying because it strikes without warning. You might be sitting in a classroom or driving a car when suddenly the world warps. The distress comes not just from the visual distortion, but from the feeling that your own body does not fit within your environment. If you frequently feel like you are shrinking or growing, or that the world around you is warping like a funhouse mirror, this could be a sign of this rare condition. 2. The belief that loved ones are imposters. Imagine walking into your kitchen and seeing your mother. She looks like your mother. She sounds like your mother. She even recounts memories that only your mother would know. But deep in your gut, there's a cold, sinking feeling that tells you, this is not her. You believe with absolute conviction that she has been replaced by an identical duplicate, an imposter, or a spy. This is the hallmark sign of Capgras delusion. It is one of the most heartbreaking conditions for both the sufferer and their family. The International Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry explains that this disorder often stems from a disconnect between the brain's visual recognition center and the amygdala, which processes emotional response. Essentially, you recognize the person's face, but you don't get the warm glow of emotional recognition that usually accompanies it. Because your brain cannot process this lack of emotion, it creates a delusion to explain it. If this person looks like my mom but doesn't feel like my mom, she must be a fake. This can lead to extreme paranoia. You might accuse your spouse of being a body snatcher or refuse to let family members into the house. It is a terrifying experience because the logic remains intact. You know what your family looks like, but the emotional anchor has been severed. If you have ever looked at a loved one and felt entirely convinced they were a visually identical stranger, it is crucial to seek a neurological and psychiatric evaluation. 3. Pathological indecision. We all struggle to pick a movie on Netflix or decide what to order for dinner. That is a normal part of the modern experience. But imagine if that inability to choose didn't just annoy you, but completely paralyzed your life. This is a sign of a bulimania. It is not just about being wishy-washy. People with a bulimania face a crippling lack of willpower or agency when it comes to making decisions. You might find yourself standing in the grocery aisle for hours, physically unable to choose between two brands of cereal. The anxiety isn't about the cereal itself, it's about the act of deciding. Unlike general anxiety, where you might fear the outcome of a decision, a bulimania is a disorder of the will. You know you need to act. You know rationally that picking the blue shirt or the red shirt doesn't matter. Yet you are frozen. It can affect your ability to work, socialize, or even leave your house. It is a psychological prison where every fork in the road becomes a wall. If you find that your daily life is grinding to a halt because the mental energy required to make a simple choice feels insurmountable, this may be more than just indecisiveness. 4. Speaking with a foreign accent. Have you ever woken up and found that your voice sounds different? Not just raspy from a cold, but fundamentally altered in rhythm and intonation? Foreign accent syndrome is a rare motor speech disorder that causes patients to speak with a perceived foreign accent. It sounds like something out of a movie, but for those who live with it, it can be a source of deep confusion and identity loss. It typically occurs after a stroke or traumatic brain injury affecting the speech center of the brain. You haven't actually learned a new language or accent. Instead, the timing, intonation, and tongue placement during speech have been altered. To the listener, it might sound like you've suddenly developed a French, German, or Australian accent. A case study from the British Medical Journal detailed a British woman who, after a stroke, began speaking with what sounded like a Jamaican accent. This can lead to accusations of faking or mocking, causing the sufferer to withdraw socially. You feel like yourself on the inside, but the sound coming out represents a stranger. If your speech patterns have shifted drastically without any effort on your part, this is a significant medical and psychological sign. 5. An overwhelming reaction to art or beauty. Most of us enjoy a beautiful sunset or a stunning painting. It might make us smile or feel a sense of awe. But for some, the exposure to immense beauty causes a physical and mental collapse. This is known as Stendhal syndrome or Florence syndrome. Named after the French author Stendhal, who described his intense experience visiting Florence, Italy, in 1817. This condition is characterized by rapid heartbeat, dizziness, fainting, confusion, and even hallucinations when an individual is exposed to objects of great beauty or art. While it is not listed as a separate disorder in the DSM-5, it is a recognized psychosomatic phenomenon, particularly among tourists in cities rich with art. Imagine walking into a gallery, looking at a statue, and feeling your chest tighten, your head spin, and your grip on reality loosen. It is an overdose of emotion. The sensory input becomes too much for the brain to process, leading to a system overload. If you find that you have intense, visceral, and physically debilitating reactions to art, music, or nature, you might be experiencing this rare sensitivity. When an individual is exposed to objects of great beauty or art. While it is not listed as a separate disorder in the DSM-5, it is a recognized psychosomatic phenomenon, particularly among tourists in cities rich with art. Imagine walking into a gallery, looking at a statue, and feeling your chest tighten, your head spin, and your grip on reality loosen. It is an overdose of emotion. The sensory input becomes too much for the brain to process, leading to a system overload. If you find that you have intense, visceral, and physically debilitating reactions to art, music, or nature, you might be experiencing this rare sensitivity. 6. The conviction that you are dead. This is perhaps one of the most harrowing experiences the human mind can conjure. Imagine waking up and knowing with absolute certainty that you no longer exist. You might believe your organs have rotted away, that your blood has stopped flowing, or that you are a walking corpse. This is Cotard's delusion, also known as walking corpse syndrome. It is a specific type of nihilistic delusion. People with Cotard's often stop eating or bathing because, in their minds, there is no point in nourishing a body that is already dead. A case study published in Mind and Brain described a patient who was convinced she had no brain and no nerves, despite being able to speak and move. This condition is often linked to severe depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. The feeling is one of profound emptiness and hopelessness. It goes beyond feeling numb. It is a literal belief in your own expiration. You might feel disconnected from your reflection, seeing it as merely a shell. If you or someone you know is expressing thoughts of being dead, decomposing, or having lost their internal organs, this is a critical sign of Cotard's and requires immediate professional intervention. 7. Extreme self-neglect and hoarding. We often joke about having a messy room, but there is a level of disarray that signals a severe disconnect from one's own well-being. Diogenes syndrome is a behavioral disorder characterized by extreme self-neglect, domestic squalor, social withdrawal, and a lack of shame regarding one's living condition. Unlike typical hoarding, where the person might be embarrassed by their mess and try to keep it from others, those with Diogenes syndrome often display no awareness that their living situation is problematic. They may live in unsafe conditions, surrounded by refuse, yet feel no compulsion to change it. It is named after the Greek philosopher Diogenes, who lived in a barrel and rejected societal norms. This condition is most common in the elderly and is often associated with frontal lobe impairment. It is a heartbreaking sign because it looks like laziness or stubbornness to the outside world, but it is actually a collapse of the self-care mechanism. The individual has lost the internal drive to maintain their dignity and health. If you notice a loved one retreating into severe squalor and refusing all offers of help with a